Critical Role, a show where a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors sit around, roll some dice, and play Dungeons & Dragons. What originally started as a home game has now become one of the most popular web shows out there today. Now, I had heard about Critical Role before, but knowing next to nothing about D&D, I just assumed that I wouldn't enjoy it. However, several months ago, I said what the hell and decided to give the first episode of Campaign 1 a shot. And it was from that moment that I became absolutely enthralled by the world, characters, and story that Matt Mercer and the cast had created. After watching the first episode, I knew I had to watch the entire campaign from start to finish. Okay, so the first episode was like 3 hours long. I mean, if they're all around 3 hours long, there can't be that many episodes. Alright, am I gonna do this? Alright, looks like I'm doing this. Yep, I'm doing this. And so began my binge watch of Critical Role, watching all of Campaign 1 and recently getting caught up to the point of Campaign 2. After this several-month endeavor, I can say with the utmost certainty, you should be watching Critical Role, and here's why. Now, before I get into it, I just want to preface this by saying that there will be minor spoilers in here. Basic information about the characters and world, but nothing that will ruin the overall story or experience of watching Critical Role. I will also be using clips from the show to elaborate on certain points that I make throughout this video, but the clips themselves will be given no context to what is happening in the story. If you want to remain as blind as possible going in like I did, I suggest you'd start with watching the first episode of either Campaign 1 or 2. And no, you do not need to watch all of Campaign 1 in order to watch Campaign 2. But I do feel like watching all of Campaign 1 adds to the experience of watching the second. That being said though, I will mostly be referencing Campaign 1 since it is the campaign that has been completed. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into it. So how exactly did Critical Role get started? As I said before, Critical Role originally started as a home game with a bunch of friends who are voice actors, with Matt Mercer as the Dungeon Master back in 2012. In fact, that first session was actually a birthday gift to Liam O'Brien. Everyone enjoyed the first session so much that Matt and the rest of the soon-to-be cast of Critical Role played several more sessions at each other's houses. After a few years of playing on a monthly basis, the YouTube channel and multimedia production company Geek and Sundry approached the group and asked if they were interested in live streaming their games. The first episode of Campaign 1 aired on March 13th, 2015, titled Arrival at Craghammer. And from that first episode, the show only grew. No one could have really predicted the success that Critical Role would have or what it would evolve into. I mean, initially you had a bunch of people who looked like they were streaming out of some middle-class suburban family's finished basement. Now they have their own studio space and set. What started as characters in the heads of the cast and were numbers on a piece of paper are now being cosplayed by people at conventions. There's fan art and fanfiction, not safe for work fan art and fanfiction, merchandise that's usually sold out, various shirts with Matt Mercer's face on them, lots and lots and lots and lots of sponsorship ads.
Hey guys. Backblaze is a great service. Backblaze is Backblaze. Guys, Loot Crate. I love Loot Crate in a major way. Loot Crate. D&D Beyond. Because D&D Beyond. D&D I'm the best at advertising.
And live shows. Yes, live shows. For D&D. The point is, what started as a bunch of friends playing a tabletop RPG turned into something that has had a huge impact on so many lives. So what is it that drew so many people in? For me and many others, it's the characters. Now, I previously mentioned that one of the reasons why I hesitated on watching Critical Role for so long was because I had little to no knowledge about D&D. I had a general idea of what it was, but when it came down to the rules and mechanics of the game, I was pretty much clueless. Let me just say this now, you do not need to know anything about D&D to watch and enjoy Critical Role. While combat and mechanics do play a big part in D&D and Critical Role, the heart of it all is how the characters react, grow, and develop relationships in this world that Matt Mercer has created. If you're someone who is looking for a character-heavy story, watch Critical Role. So who are these characters? Meet Vox Machina and the Mighty Nine, a ragtag group of adventurers who for each of their own reasons decide to team up to embark on an epic journey. These characters are some of the most lovable and relatable ones that I have come across in any form of media in a long time. I feel that most of that comes from how well portrayed these characters are by their actors. Throughout watching the show, you can definitely tell how close the cast is to their characters, and it definitely reflects in their performances. But before I continue, I'll give you guys a quick rundown of the members of Vox Machina and the Mighty Nine and the actors who play them. From Campaign 1, we have Liam O'Brien as Vax'ildan, a half-elf rogue and twin brother to Vex'ahlia, Laura Bailey as Vex'ahlia, a half-elf ranger who has a pet bear named Trinket, Ashley Johnson as Pike Trickfoot, a gnome cleric who is best friends with Grog, Travis Willingham as Grog Strongjaw, a Goliath barbarian, Sam Riegel as Scanlan Shorthalt, a gnome bard, Taliesin Jaffe as Percival Frederickstein von Musil Kowalski de Rollo III, but you can just call him Percy, a human gunslinger, and Marisha Ray as Keyleth, the half-elf druid. For Campaign 2, we have Liam O'Brien as Caleb Widowgast, a human wizard, Laura Bailey as Jester Lavore, a tiefling cleric, Ashley Johnson as Yasha, an Aasimar barbarian, Travis Willingham as Ford, a half-orc warlock, Sam Riegel as Not the Brave, a goblin rogue, Taliesin Jaffe as Mollymock Tealeaf, a tiefling bloodhunter, and Marisha Ray as Beauregard, a human monk. Now, since Campaign 2 is still going on, I won't focus on it as much since there is still a lot of story and character development in the works. So for this, I will focus mainly on Campaign 1 since it is the story that has concluded. But just know that anything I say regarding how incredible Campaign 1's cast and characters are still apply for Campaign 2. Now, as I said before, when watching the show, you can definitely tell how connected the cast is to their characters, and this leads to some amazing moments with each other. These can range from funny moments.
I use Thieves' Cant to knock out the phrase, no bullshit, on the door.
You see his chin kind of move and grind for a moment.
I did that with my penis.
Moments of anger.
I'm gonna get a little weird, and I'm just taking straight chest shots, and I'm just firing chest shots, and I'm just making a hole the size of a baseball in his chest. And as it happens, as I keep unloading, the gun still breaks, and I'm still pulling the trigger. You fool, your soul is forfeit! Die! Die! I'm gonna look at the other two and start pulling out my bigger gun.
Oh, shit.
Moments of celebration.
What do you want to do?
Poetic justice!
Or quiet emotional ones.
Pull her into a hug and say, I love you, Stubby. I'm never gonna leave your side. I'm always gonna be there. You can always be a pain in the ass like you are. I love you. Always have, always will. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I slap him across the face.
The fuck was that for?
I love you too.
Matt Mercer allows his players this kind of freedom when it comes to development and interactions between each other. And honestly, it's the moments like the ones I just showed you that are some of my favorite parts of the show. The characters feel real and genuine because everything the characters do are based off the improvisations and reactions of their actors. It's an expansive, immersive world created by Matt, with the cast able to take their characters and develop them however they see fit. There's no script and endless possibilities. And that's a large part of what makes Critical Role so appealing. It's unscripted. In a time where all media that we watch is scripted, having a group of talented individuals relying on their acting, improvisational skills, creativity, and wits is a huge breath of fresh air. Here are just some of my favorite moments showing this. Here we have Travis as Grog, who has a low intelligence, trying to barter with a shopkeeper.
All 14 of your dragon's teeth. And perhaps 2 of those blood vials.
What would Vex do? What would Vex do? How about
Thank you.
all of the dragon's teeth? and 3 of the vials of blood.
What?
Done.
He accepts all the dragon's teeth, 3 of the 4 vials of blood. You can mark those off the bag of holding.
We're getting you a leash.
Mark those off the
Rex
bag of
will be so proud of me.
Next, we have Sam and Laura as Scanlan and Vex, 2 of the more charismatic characters of the group, disguised as peasants trying to deceive a local townswoman.
Oh, excuse me.
One of those crazy eyes.
My papa sent me to send a present, a gift of sorts, to a Sir Kyrian. We're just looking to see where we can deliver the gift.
If you're looking for Sicarian, you go to the southeast. Look for the brick building. That's where he stays, near the farming area south of... You're not from here, are you?
No,
we're new to town.
she's blind.
All right.
Okay. I just need to bring him this sack of presents because my papa will whip me pretty bad.
TMI.
There's a look of sadness in her eyes, almost like what horrible fate befalls this child. He's not
I
careful.
smack him on the back of the head.
Grandmama,
and
I'm
say,
sorry.
Let's go,
I'm
boy. Keep up.
She recoils.
I'm her seeing eye boy.
And last, we have Ashley as Pike trying to help Grog with learning the alphabet.
Okay, what's the first letter of the alphabet? This you know.
G.
That's the first letter of your name.
Oh, it is?
Yes,
It doesn't
but that's
stop
not
at
the
that.
first letter of the alphabet. You've said it before.
Hi. Hey.
It's the first letter. Oh, well, you wouldn't know that because you don't know how to spell.
Fucking A, this is tough.
Oh,
What?
you just said it.
Fucking A.
Yes.
A.
A is the first letter of the alphabet.
A. A. A.
Okay.
A.
And we can keep going. But
It just goes to show how many possibilities there are when it comes to role-playing. And because there are so many possibilities, you get plenty of character interactions and development. Upon starting the show, you may see the characters as just your typical stereotypes, but give it a few episodes and you'll learn more about their backstories and motivations, offering a better insight. Additionally, Critical Role has a gameplay runtime of over 373 hours, so that's over 15 days straight of content. Having this much time dedicated to a story and cast gives a lot of opportunity for growth that you can't get anywhere else because other shows don't get over 370 hours to tell their story. With this amount of time focused on the characters, the viewer can't help but get attached to them. And as I said before, the connection that the cast has to their own characters is incredibly apparent, but as the story progresses, you can see that the cast becomes attached to the other players' characters as well. One of the other great things about Critical Role is that the cast, like the viewer, are experiencing the same things. They don't know what the other players are gonna do.
Well, I might die and stuff, so just don't read this until I do. Can I read it?
Don't.
Pass it over. That's all. Have a good night.
bye, Scanlan.
Bye.
Secrets. I close the door, I open it, and I read it.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Yes, you do.
Oh my God.
Nobody look. Don't you look.
So as much as they are role-playing, they are also reacting just as much as the viewer. You will laugh.
I think it's time to start killing.
Grog up first.
Places, everyone, places. Grog up before me, and then I go right after Grog.
I'm so excited.
Rage.
So.
It's level 2, right? Oh my god.
It's a natural one.
Yeah. Oh my god. Level 2 earlier though.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. So
Yeah, laugh it up.
is it possible?
I'm pregnant.
Wow.
Seriously?
A 1, a 1, and a 2.
Oh wow, Laura. Oh wow.
So 8 points of healing, you guys, for that level 3 spell. Okay, but that's still... I'll take it.
Hey.
Baby can hear all of this.
I know.
Baby can hear all of this.
This game's gonna make me go into labor.
Be shocked?
Now, please, let us talk. Violence will not end in your favor.
And cry. With the cast and their characters, their whole journey. And here's what I consider one of the biggest lessons in Critical Role. You don't need to have played D&D before to be a good D&D player. Many of the cast members had never played a game of D&D before, yet here they are on a live stream playing memorable characters in a well-told story. It's because of their creativity and role-playing skills that they are considered to be good D&D players. Additionally, several guest stars also had never played D&D before prior to their appearance on the show. The two most notable and memorable guests being Mary Elizabeth McGlynn and Will Friedle. Despite not having played a game before, they both quickly became fan favorites and returned as guest stars for several episodes, and even started their own D&D game. They didn't have to have the player's handbook memorized to be a good player. Rather, the characters that they created and how they portrayed them is what made them so memorable. Take this moment here with Will as his character Kashaw, and keep in mind what I said before about improvisational acting.
Dale? Where you been, man?
Wait, Cash?
What the hell's going on?
That's the biggest
Going to die today. What are you doing?
Pretty much the same thing, man. How's Ann?
Anne's not doing too well.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Good to see you. You're looking
good. To see you too. You too.
All right, I'll see you later, man.
All right.
I haven't seen that guy in forever.
What's that?
So bizarre. Let's go.
Completely improvised. Dale wasn't a character that existed in the world until that moment, but now he does. And not only that, but we have a general backstory on him. He has a wife named Anne. He at one point knew Kashaw and is going to help in an upcoming battle. It's honestly pretty incredible. And while that was an improvised moment that led to the creation of a new NPC and even gave a little bit of a backstory to Kashaw, there are also moments like this.
And by the strength of blood, from the willingness to sacrifice. Pardon me.
It's things like that that add to the overall charm of Critical Role. Silly little improvisations. Now in those clips you most likely noticed that Matt Mercer played the NPCs. And this brings me to the point of Matt Mercer as Dungeon Master and the story he created in Critical Role. It's honestly some of the best storytelling and world building I have seen. As someone who didn't know much about D&D going in, I had a basic understanding of what a Dungeon Master does. But even knowing little to nothing about D&D, I was still aware of how many people considered Matt to be one of the best DMs out there. Within the first 2 episodes, I understood what everyone was talking about. The way he builds and creates atmosphere, or how he describes certain scenery or NPCs in this world is incredible. And just how big is this world, you might ask? Guess how many NPCs were in Campaign 1? Go on. Take a guess. I'll wait. It's probably higher than what you guessed. You got it? Locked in your answer there? 618. 618 non-playable characters that are in this world. And thank you to CritRollStats.com, a website that basically tracks anything and everything Critical Role related, where I was able to find this number. Now, as Dungeon Master, Matt has to play a large portion of these 618 characters. Here are just a few of these characters that Matt plays.
If you're worried, it's not me you need to worry about. It's him.
And points past your shoulder.
How could a lady say no to a song? 25 gold, the price tag.
So I have to pay you and sing to you.
Yes.
We're on a business here. Yes.
Tell her you're with a gnome. Why don't you come on to my key? Pay for the book, I hear you.
I'm so glad you came back.
Gilmore.
I'm sorry, I was out and about running some business.
You didn't
ways
have
away.
to go to all that trouble to come back here.
How could I? Missing my fight. There's not as many of you as usual.
And the few that remain, one of which you'll speak with on this day, is one of the ones that sold them out. So, I hope you have your questions ready. Other hand is out and it's like, and around this way you can see the Venstral Spire, which is a wonderful craft fair that happens once every 2 weeks.
Oh, well, that's all right. Not to worry, in no serious rush. Isn't that right, my dear?
You look strangely similar to a gentleman we just had dinner with.
That's crazy.
It's uncanny how similar you look. I know you. The moment you touched my sickness, I knew you. I have been without for so very long. And the ones I've let in have hurt me so very deeply.
Yes!
Oh.
You said you need black powder. Yes, come in.
And he runs back into the hovel.
Nice.
And he goes,
So, you came looking for black powder, did you? No one asked about the black powder, but I knew it had a purpose. Yes. You wish to buy it? How much do you want? Speak up! Speak up, I haven't all day!
but yeah, it should be fine.
So,
Stay on the road.
okay, stay on the road.
Stay on the road.
Do you
Stay on the
actually
road.
have a map that we could use?
This is not done.
No?
And I need to finish it.
Okay.
Before I can give it to a printer to make more.
I think the most amazing part about Matt DMing is that you can see the cast is just as blown away as the viewers are.
Matthew, we've been doing this for 3 years and you still fucking blow me away. Game after game.
Kind of stunned by the whole encounter.
I mean, come on.
Amazing.
Come the fuck on.
Amazing.
Come on.
Matt's crazy
I'm
prospect.
going to very gently. I'm going to walk over to Samson's place then and become very excited at the prospect of a new accent.
And like I said before, part of it is because the cast is experiencing everything just like the viewer is. The only one who has a general idea of what is going to happen each episode is Matt. Anything he introduces on a weekly basis is new to both the cast and viewers, which in my opinion further develops the viewer's attachment to the characters and story. In any other form of media, there's a script. There's a set way for the story to go and for the characters to interact, but not with Critical Role. And that's probably the most amazing thing about the show. It's the sense of uncertainty and spontaneity each week. While Matt has an idea of how he wants the story to go, there's always the possibility that a character's reaction or choice will take the game's story in a new direction. It's just one of those things that adds to the magic of Critical Role and why it resonates with so many people. Speaking of story though, Critical Role has an enthralling one with action, adventure, mystery, laughs, love, loss, and everything in between. In all honesty, how fleshed out the story was what shocked me the most when it came to watching the show. From my limited knowledge about D&D, I assumed it would just kind of be a monster of the week type thing where the group would go on a new adventure, kill a monster, collect their money, rinse and repeat. It was the way Matt described the scenery or NPCs, the way he allowed his players to interact with each other and make choices that show me very early on Matt had a story he wanted to tell and uses his players' creativity and imagination to build off that story throughout the whole show. A great example of this would be the characters' backstories that the players created. With each character, Matt finds a way to slip his own narrative in and surprise the players when it comes to revelations about their own characters. But beyond the characters' personal stories, Critical Role is a show that has an expansive, overarching story in the world of Exandria. I mean, it's over 370 hours of gameplay. It's going to be a pretty hefty story. There are several major arcs in Campaign 1, and in each arc there are certain plot points that Matt puts in the narrative to encourage individual characters to develop while intertwining it with the major arcing storyline in a seamless way. Thus, allowing each character to have moments to shine, but at the same time, not overshadowing each other. Additionally, Matt has a knack for surprising the players by bringing back old plot points from the story. Certain NPCs, items, and locations that were introduced in the story, some fairly early on even, will come back in some of the most unexpected ways. I would even suggest taking notes during episodes. I often found myself jotting down new pieces of information in a notepad, not thinking much of it, but then 10, 20, 30, 40, hell, even 50 episodes later, that piece of information comes back and completely changes the way the story is going. It just goes to show how great Matt is at storytelling and how dedicated and connected he is to the world he has created.
The tome slams shut. The figure stands up straight. Slowly turns the eyes towards you, and you can see kind of the dark and ruddy skin, the kind of sun-touched nose and cheeks, just a darker, more leathered texture to them, but the eyes are piercing ice blue. Heading past the buildings and concerts, you see these spires that come into these kind of rounded point towers, all made from some colored glass, some dark greens and blacks. You begin to see there are deep, carved and well-manufactured waterways, or what would be considered waterways in other cities, except here, the actual molten lava from the Sea of Fire pours through. You hear, and you notice the vines, some are pulling and snapping, while others begin to slowly pull apart. That giant mass of vines that are clustered between two of the large roots that merge the tree begin to untangle and fall free.
And all that time, love, and effort that goes into the story and world building only helps the players in creating an immersive, exciting adventure with their characters. Which brings me back to the point of this video, why you should be watching Critical Role. If you want the simplified answer, it's a show that offers a great story, memorable characters, incredible acting, lots of laughs, and heartfelt moments. If you want the more detailed answer, Critical Role is a one-of-a-kind show that above all else encourages creativity and camaraderie amongst players. At the end of the day, while the long strategic battles are something that I watched and enjoyed about the show, it's not the thing that I remember most or what sticks with me when looking back at the show. Rather, it's the creativity and imagination of Matt and the cast. Critical Role presents storytelling in a way that honestly no other show can replicate. It's a show that builds off the imaginations of all 8 members, 8 different people who get together every week to tell their own individual stories that intertwine into one epic one. When all is said and done, I didn't look back at the cast and decide whether they were a good D&D player based on how well they knew the game, but rather their storytelling abilities. And ultimately, that really is the true story of Critical Role, a bunch of friends having fun telling a story together. And more than that, D&D is a game for anyone and everyone. It doesn't matter your age, gender, race, etc. What matters is the story you want to tell and the characters you want to create. In a time where most of our entertainment is looking at a screen, it's refreshing to see a show encourage creativity and face-to-face interactions with each other. And I know it's ironic that I'm praising a show that is live streamed and is viewed by thousands of people every week through a screen, but it's because it's live streamed that Critical Role has affected so many people and inspired them to either pick up their first game of D&D or perhaps pick up their first game in several years. My point is, what Critical Role embodies is a unique form of storytelling and world building and character interaction that you can't get anywhere else, and ultimately the goal of the show is to inspire others to do the same. So, if you're looking for a good show, then you'll find what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a show that will leave a lasting impression and rekindle that sense of wonder, creativity, and imagination, then you should be watching Critical Role, where every day you'll be asking yourself, is it Thursday yet?